Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Sonic Discovery. I am your host, David Correa. On this episode, we'll be covering a debut album from Kali Uchis, along with music from Hinds and Daniel Avery. Well guys, thanks for tuning into the show. If this is your first time taking a listen or watch to Sonic Discovery, let me kind of first let you know what you're in store for. So what happens here is, there's tons of music that comes out every week. So I pick out different albums and I choose to talk about them here on the show. So what you can do if you're curious is you can kind of just listen to the review and then, take it on upon yourself to either avoid the album or give it a listen and potentially fall in love with something new. And that is definitely something that can happen with this first album. This is the debut from Kali Uchis, and it's called Isolation. Now, if you're familiar with Kali's name, it's because she has been a featured guest on a lot of different tracks by different artists. She's also released an EP and a mixtape, but this is her first proper debut. And man, this is one hell of a debut. Primarily, you get an R&B sound, but there's a lot of different influences and sounds that make their way onto this album. It all starts off with a splash up at the top with the track Body Language. This is just kind of thought of as an intro because it is a pretty short track. But here we get a spacey jazz sound that has flutes and a real cool fluid bass. And I believe this one is played by a Thundercat, as she keeps asking you to just get a little closer. Then that leads us to the second track, Miami, featuring Bia. And this, I really love the groove on this track. And this one, I considered it to be a little spicy, as she's talking about women empowerment. Here she states, why would she want to be Kim when she can be Kanye? On the next, Just a Stranger, this has a feature from Steve Lacy of The Internet. And here we get another great groove, along with these woozy sounding synths, as she's talking about the people that judge from afar without really knowing anything about her. Your Teeth in My Neck gives us yet another great groove, and the overall sound here I found to be a little more jazz leaning, as she's talking about people just keep taking from her and they leave her feeling all dried up. Tyrant, featuring Georgia Smith, is one of the singles released from this album, and this gives us a really catchy sound with like a slowed down Latin rhythm, as here she's talking about forgetting the worries of the world and just getting lost inside this person's love. Nuestra Planeta is a track that's entirely done in Spanish and that has a feature from Raycon. And this gives us a great reggaeton beat as she's talking about creating an experience with her love where it feels like they're the only two people alive on this planet. In My Dreams features vocals and production from Damon Albarn. And this has a familiar synth pop sound to his group Gorillaz. And here she's talking about escaping the harsh realities of the real world and staying inside this made-up world that exists in her dreams. There's a light funk going on the next track, Tomorrow, which features production from Kevin Parker of Tame Impala, as she talks about making her way to the next day with a real carefree outlook on life. Coming Home is a short interlude on the album, but still gets a lot in there, as it starts with a more softer, soulful sound, and then that suddenly comes to a halt, as it brings on a more hip-hop flavored track, as she talks about just keep moving forward one step at a time. After the Storm gives us a smooth R&B sound brought on by producers Bad Bad Not Good, and this features Bootsy Collins on vocals and bass, And also Tyler, the creator, is on here to provide a great verse talking about, despite all the different struggles, you can't give up. You have to keep going. And on Feel Like a Fool, we get a more upbeat, classic R&B sound as she's talking about her man that doesn't seem to really treat her all that well, but she just can't seem to let him go. And along with those other tracks I mentioned, you definitely still need to check out Dead to Me with its great synth pop sound, and Flight 22 and The Closer Killer, which gives us a more slowed down R&B feel. And there's really not a bad track on this album, guys. That's why this is going to get a score of a 9 out of 10 from me. So there we go. My second 9 out of 10 for the year. And one that, again, packs in a lot of different sounds. And overall, a great debut from Kali that you just have to check out. Next up for review, we have the second release from the garage Spanish band Hinds. This is called I Don't Run. Like I mentioned, these girls are from Spain. They have a garage sound with some pop sensibilities and also some lo-fi thrown in here as well. This is album number 2 from them. And on this one, I really got more of a Strokes vibe that I did from their first. And it might have something to do with the guy who mixed the album. I believe he mixed some of the Strokes work. But still, a really nice album from these ladies. And we're going to start this album up at the top with the opening track, The Club. This one is one where you really hear that Strokes influence come through really clear, as they're talking about not wanting the good times from last night to come to an end, because they're not ready to go home, and they're actually looking forward to having things go a little further. The next track, Soberland, had a dreamier quality on the verses when you compare it to the more raspier sound on the chorus, as they're talking about those people that are fake. They're just walking cliches. And really, if they're trying to get their attention, they should really be barking up a different tree. On Linda, we still keep that Strokes sound, but this is a much softer affair, as they're talking about needing their baby around. New For You is the leading single from this album. This continues the garage rock sound and is also really catchy, as they're talking about wanting to be someone new for you. I really like the contrast between the verse and the chorus on this next track, Echoing My Name, as they're saying, even if love did crush you down, sometimes I just miss having you around. Tester was one of the more upbeat tracks on this album, as they're talking about confronting their cheating man, and it almost seems like he's just trying to test them. To the Morning Light has a very catchy, distinct guitar line that you hear throughout the song, and this one talks about bringing someone out from the harshness of night and into the morning light. Rookie had a very catchy garage rock sound, as they're talking about falling in love. If you're doing it wrong, at least do it strong. And then the album closes with the acoustic track Na Nut. This one almost sounds like a demo, very lo-fi sound, as not only do they sing in English, but in Spanish and also in French. And here, they're just talking about life on the road. Overall, I did enjoy this release. It actually reminded me a lot of their debut album, where it's very light and breezy. It has that garage rock sound, but also very catchy pop sensibilities throughout. This is going to get a score of a 7.5 out of 10 from me. So if you're familiar with these girls from their previous album, you're getting a very similar thing on this new release. And if you're not familiar with them, then, if you're in the mood for checking out some catchy garage rock, then definitely give Hinds a listen. And the last album up for review is the second release from Daniel Avery. This is called Song for Alpha. Now, Daniel is a British producer and DJ. He has more of an ambient techno style going on. And that's what was really prominent on his first release that was called Drone Logic. And that album gained a lot of attention from critics. And you get a very similar sound going on this release. Some of these tracks here, about 4 or 5 of them, are much shorter. They're just kind of these little interludes, and they're ambient in nature. Just kind of, little segue pieces until you get to the next track. One of them I was especially fond of, Days From Now, is one that you should definitely look out for. But the other tracks are a bit longer, ranging anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes, where you get a different beat coming in. And over this beat, you either get very soft, ambient-like synths, or different melodic patterns that really grab your attention. But as the song continues, it just kind of starts shifting as new sounds are added in throughout. And that can be found on the second track, Stereo L, where we have a steady beat and these woozy synths. And like I said, little by little, just different sounds are added in that just really grow the entire landscape of the track. Sensation has these bubbling effects, these piercing synth avalanches, and these hi-hat patterns that ride in over a house beat that really amounts to one of my favorite tracks on this album. Clear has a jumpy synth line that plays repeatedly over this quick beat, as little sounds are added throughout the track to really keep it interesting the whole way. Diminuendo takes a darker tone with these eerie waves of synths, a quick house tempo, and these other rhythm patterns that play throughout the track. Slow Fade is a track that can be found on an EP he released earlier this year. And on this one, we get a steady beat that has warm synths floating all around above it. And this one also has a melodic line that starts the album and then kind of makes its way back towards the end. Very similarly, Glitter has another really steady beat with warm synths above. And this one has different sounds added in throughout that really push the track forward. And then the album closes with Quick Eternity, which has these soft synths illuminating the track as this faster beat plays underneath. And on the second half, the beat just completely goes away as we just get these humming synths leading out the second half. Overall, I was pretty happy with this release. It didn't really have any track on here that really wowed me, but there's enough on this album to really keep it interesting. You follow on like a certain little beat, and you just kind of listen to these little sounds that are added throughout that basically just kind of keep it interesting and never really boring. The one complaint I'll have from this album is that I feel that some of these tracks just go on a little too long, because sometimes it seems like an idea is just reintroduced into the track. And once you've brought in all the different ideas, you basically heard them all, and I think that's where the track could end. This is still going to get a score of a 7 out of 10 from me. So if you like just kind of having some soft music in the background that may have a catchy beat that'll grab your attention here and there, then this may be an album for you to check out. Well guys, that does it for another episode of the show. I hope you liked my reviews. If you did, make sure to leave a little comment down at the bottom. And like always, if you have any music or any artists that you want me to be listening to and reviewing on the show, just go ahead and leave those down there at the bottom as well. And while you're there, hit the like button or subscribe, and you'll know when the next episode comes out. On the next, I'll be looking to talk about the newest album from Hopalong. So be on the lookout for that.